I understand from reading your work and listening to you with other people that basically it's unlikely that even if a woman could get pregnant on Mars, that she could have a vaginal birth. So we'd need a C-section to do that, which would then reduce pressure on keeping the head size small. So are we ending up with a whole different species?
Yeah, so this is one scenario, basically, that is what I would say. So, as I said before, we think that being in a lower gravity environment, like the 130 G environment on Mars, would cause bones to weaken in a way that's similar to what we see in astronauts in a weightless environment. If that's true, then a woman who was born on Mars and, was living her entire life there, by the time she goes to become a mother and give birth, her bones are likely to be substantially weakened. And that's why I think pregnancy is likely to be much more risky for people on Mars, because they're going to be going through, pregnancy and childbirth with weakened bones. And we know that some of the bones that tend to weaken the most in lower gravity include the pelvis and the hip. And these are, of course, very important for just the process of childbirth. We know that a pelvic fracture can be life-threatening in the context of childbirth. So, I think there's a couple of different ways that could go, right? One is that there's nothing we can do about it, and we end up with a lot of, maternal mortality. You could have a lot of child mortality that goes along with it, right? If the mother's life is threatened by that complication, that the child's could be as well. Over time, that could actually lead to natural selection operating to do something like make the bones stronger, even in the lower gravity environment. But the other possibility is we intervene. We use, medicine and technology, and we do things like make every birth a cesarean section, a C-section, so that the chances of both mother and baby surviving are higher. It seems to me like that's the more likely scenario. I think that's what we would all prefer to happen. So if that does become the case, and you just make all births C-sections, one of the interesting side effects of that is that you have removed one of the major constraints that has existed throughout the history of human evolution. And that is that, even with our big heads that came with our big brains that evolved in our ancestors, you still have to fit the head through the birth canal. And that has been a constraint, and it's affected, a bunch of different aspects of human biology. And, we could talk all day about that. But if that constraint doesn't exist anymore, now you have the possibility of the human head actually expanding, growing larger in subsequent generations. So, yeah, I've argued that you could actually have the evolution of, a human species on Mars with larger heads, which I suppose starts to look a little more like some of the sci-fi depictions of aliens, right?